Now, let's get writing. Here's your host, James Kelly.
Hello and welcome to Aspects of Writing here on KLAV. I'm your host, James Kelly. My co-host for today's show is Dana Micheli and Janet Coursey. On your computer, you can listen to this broadcast live at KLAV1230am.com. The topic of today's show is The Romance Writer. Our guests for today's show are Laura Harner, Kymber Morgan, Lance Taubolt, and Rich Devin. Before we get into our guests, my panel and I would like to read a few fun quotes. And Jan, we're going to start with you.
I have been successful probably because I've always realized that I knew nothing about writing and merely tried to tell an interesting story entertainingly. Edgar Rice Burroughs.
And Dana.
Writing a novel is like driving a car at night. You can only see as far as the headlights, but you can make the whole trip that way. E.L. Dr. O.
All right, and Lance?
Literature is all, or mostly, about sex. Anthony Burgess. Thanks.
You read that matter-of-factly?
No.
All right. And Kymber, are you online?
I am. Hello.
All right. Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Mine is get it down, take chances. It may be bad, but it's the only way you can do anything really good.
All right. And
falseness.
Great. And Rich?
I like that last one a lot.
Yeah.
A blank piece of paper is God's way of telling us how hard it is to be God. Sidney Sheldon.
How about that?
And do we have Laura online?
You do.
All right, Laura, how about the next one?
First, find out what your hero wants, then just follow him. Ray Bradbury.
All right, and our last one is by Orson Scott Card, and it's everybody walks past 1,000 story ideas every day. The good writers are the ones who see 5 or 6 of them. Most people don't see any. If you are just tuning in, you're listening to Aspects of Writing with me, your host, James Kelly, here on KLAV, along with my co-host for today's show, Dana Micheli and Janet Coursey. Again, on the computer, you can listen to this broadcast live at www.klav1230am.com. Our guests for today's show are Laura Harner, Kymber Morgan, Lance Taubolt, and Rich Devin. Today's subject is about writing romance. Our first guest is author Kymber Morgan. Kymber lives in, I said Canada, but actually she lives in
No, she does live in Canada.
She does.
Oh, yeah.
She lives in
Kymber
Canada.
lives in Canada. All right.
Yeah.
Lance was confusing me before the show. We'll get we'll go into that later.
And during the show.
And during the show,
apparently,
yeah. All right. So anyway, she is married, has one son. So Kymber, what else can you tell us about yourself?
Okay, well, other than right now I'm cold, just got to say that. Let's see. I have a short attention span, which is why I write in more than one genre. My husband and I have worked together for over 15 years without getting a divorce or killing each other. I'm
That's an
the proud
accomplishment.
possession of a cat named Twitch, and I'm a snowbird in training, at least until I sell enough books that I can quit my day job and go full-time writing and RVing.
There you go. All right. So what is the title of your latest book, and what is it about?
Okay, my latest book, which is going to be available for pre-sale on Amazon and Smashwords at a special price from December 1st until its release on the 15th of December, is the first in the Aspen Ridge Ranch series that I'm writing with Laura Harner, as a matter of fact. It's entitled Ride the Storm, and it's the story of an Alberta cattle rancher and a New York PR executive who don't have very much in common unless you count a decade-old secret, a dangerous vendetta, and a white-hot mutual attraction, and the storm of trouble building on the horizon that neither one of them sees coming.
Ooh,
Wow. Sounds good.
that sounds exciting.
Oh, it's fun.
Dana, do you have a question for Kymber?
Yeah, when did you discover that you had a gift for writing?
Well, that wasn't actually until after I joined the Romance Writers of America local chapter here in Calgary and attended my first conference, where I quite foolishly pitched a book with barely 3 chapters done on it and ended up with multiple requests for the full manuscript. I wrote like a madwoman for the next couple of weeks, finally got it submitted, only to have it passed up on all counts. But along with the rejections came an awful lot of encouragement from those particular agents and editors. I was actually bowled right over by one of them who you normally can't get near without an agent. When she invited me to submit basically anything I came up with in the future, she felt my voice was that strong and fresh. So, yeah.
What a compliment. That's huge.
Yeah, that is.
Huge compliment, yeah. How long have you been writing?
I started writing, well, probably would have been about 2005, I guess, but didn't really get completely serious about it until 2010.
And we're going to talk more about your writing as we go into the second part of the show. But I would like to know, where can we learn more about your work?
On my website at www.kymbermorgan.com. I also have a Facebook fan page, or on Twitter at Kymber Morgan.
Okay. Well, we have 4 guests on the show today, so we're moving right along. Our next guest is author Laura Harner. And Laura and Kymber are best friends, I believe. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're recent friends, but it's really fast and furious, I have to say.
Laura,
Oh, yeah. That's what happens when you write a book together.
Yeah. And Laura, you were raised in California, but until recently you moved to Arizona, I believe. Or you were in Arizona and you moved to... this is where we were confused. I was talking to Lance before the show, and I thought Kymber said Canada, but I know now she said Kingman because Lance corrected me.
Well, you think he corrected
You're living
you,
somewhere.
or he led you astray, one of the two.
So where are you, Laura?
Yeah, Laura, where are you?
I live in Fort Mojave, Arizona, as of this past weekend. I just moved here from Phoenix.
Well, you got the
Not too
state
far
right,
from
James.
Nepal.
At least I got this state right. Okay. All right. After retiring from the U.S. Navy, she found a niche in working for the land management agencies, including the National Park Service, the Bureau of Land, and the Bureau of Land Management. Though she has held many jobs around the world, her favorite was working and living in Grand Canyon National Park. Working and eating in New Orleans was a close second. You will find many of her books are set against the rich backdrops provided by coastal Louisiana and northern Arizona. Wonder why Arizona. Laura, what would you like to add to that short bio? And even correct me if you need to.
Yeah.
I was going to say it was a long bio. I think that about covers it. I mean, otherwise I just make stuff up, so I'm not sure I'd trust me.
That's good.
And Dana, you have a question for her.
How long have you been writing?
Well, I've been writing fiction just since 2008. I literally woke up one morning the day after Christmas with a family full of guests, and I'd had one of those amazing dreams, not that kind of a dream about Highlanders, and sat down in the middle of all our company and said, I'm going to write a book, and proceeded to ignore everybody for the next 6 months, and I did write a book. So that's how it started.
Wow.
So it was a very romantic dream you had that caused you to write romance?
You know, it really wasn't. It was more about fae and druids and the Scottish Highlands, and it was like a 4-book series just unfolded in this dream. And it took me a couple of years to get all 4 books written, but I did eventually get them written, so it was very fun.
So you somehow turned this into a romance series.
Oh, well, it was a romance, but the romance wasn't part of the dream. The dream was more just the following the magic. And
that was the
world
creativity part on your...
Yeah.
All right. What is the title of your latest work, and what is the premise of the story?
Well, my latest work is the one I'm writing with Kim, is the Ride the Storm, but my latest release prior to that was called Wit's End, and it's about a country music star who manages to stay married for only about 3 days and gets an annulment, and then everybody wants to know if it's because he's gay, and he ends up at a ranch full of gay cowboys. So
I have to say, Laura, it is awesome. All of that series is really good.
It is.
Thank you.
All right, and Laura, where can we learn more about your work?
Well, there's a lauraharner.com website, and you'll find my books there. But I probably interact with people more on Facebook. Just look up Laura Harner and come join the group, and that's where you'll see whatever's happening next in my daily coffee posts and fun things like that.
All right. And again, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Aspects of Writing with me, your host, James Kelly, here on KLAV, along with my co-host for today's show, Dana Micheli and Janet Coursey. On the computer, again, you can listen to this broadcast live at KLAV1230am.com. Our guests for today's show are Laura Harner, Kymber Morgan, Lance Taubolt, and Rich Devin. Our third guest is author Rich Devin. Rich is a contributing writer to the Southern Nevada Equestrian magazine, Envy Man magazine, and is the published author of 2 business books to the showbiz trade. One is Actors' Resumes, the Defiant Guidebook, I'm sorry, the distinctive guidebook.
How about
definitive?
Oh, there we go, definitive guidebook. Let me tell you something.
You make up the titles.
Yeah, I do. I want to make it very creative.
So you wrote 3 more books that you weren't aware of.
As you can
Thank
tell,
you.
I have problems with my eyes or something.
My publisher owes me some royalties on these that I didn't know about. So.
You wrote 3 books that you. All right. And also, do you want to be an actor? And that's 101 answers to your questions about breaking into the biz.
That's right, the showbiz.
He contributed 2 anthologies, Tales from the Casting Couch, that was in 1995, and Glory in 2001. He is an award-winning playwright, having received the Foundation for the Virtual Arts Awards for his plays Deceptive Peace and My Mother's Coming, and is an optioned screenwriter. Tell me a little bit about the option screen.
Yeah, so I wrote a screenplay a while back called Golden Gate, and it was one of those Die Hard kind of movies, and that was optioned while I was living in Los Angeles at the time. I was actually a theatrical agent when I lived in Los Angeles. I need to move to different
Someone
cities.
else is in the wrong state.
I can't have LAS and LOS cities, apparently. So while I was there, I was an agent, and I started to write some screenplays, and that screenplay got optioned by Cat Williams, was that his name? Greatest American Hero, Kit Williams? Kit Williams.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he had a big production company, and he optioned that screenplay for us. It never did see the light of day.
William Cat.
William Cat.
There we go.
William Cat.
We got the cat. Right.
We got the
What
kit
is
and the
wrong
cat.
with us today?
We're really good at writing, not speaking.
There we
Yeah,
go.
that's what it is today. And so that got optioned, and it never did make it into a movie, but it was great to have it optioned. As a matter of fact, now that we're talking about that, my newest book, which is called The Third Hour, just got picked up by a production company.
Oh, wow.
I just got an email just the other day. I was surprised the heck out of me just to get this email that a production company is very interested in pursuing it, and so they reached out to me. So maybe that one will go farther.
In addition to what I've already talked about, what can you add to your resume?
In addition to the things you made up for me?
I wanted to sound real
You write
good.
fiction here.
Yeah. Well, I began as an actor. I moved to New York City as an actor, and I pursued my acting career there. Was on stage, on Broadway, on off-Broadway, a lot of things, toured the country all over. I was always interested in writing, even when I was a young kid. So I had always written poems and some other little plays and things like that when I was a kid. But when I moved to New York and was an actor, then I wrote a play called My Mother's Coming, which I initially wrote for myself and for Lance. Unfortunately, we outgrew, or we got old, and the characters in the play didn't. So it was later produced in New York, and was also produced in Hollywood. So that got me writing, and that's where we sort of fell in love with the actual art of writing, the creative part of it.
Okay. And so obviously your passion for writing came from when you were a child. You were saying you were actually interested in writing when you were younger.
Yeah, I don't know actually how it started, but I remember writing some poems. And when I was a little kid, maybe I'll say 13 years old, I wrote this poem about an eagle, and a man bought it from me for $15 and made a song out of it.
Wow.
And yeah, when I was a kid, I was like really surprised. Yeah. And it was just this little poem I wrote, probably for English class or something, and he really liked it. And bought it and made a song. It was like a little folk song. I don't remember how, back then it was probably tape, obviously it was tape. And he recorded it, and I had a tape of it for a long time, but I don't know if I still do. But that got me going in writing.
So since you're saying tape, you're at least 20.
Yeah. Yes, at least.
Or was that 8-track tape?
Yeah, well, it was probably both. Then I'm a little older than 20, yeah.
Dana, did you have a question for Rich?
Yeah, I'm amazed at your versatility with the different things that you write. Plays, novels, screenplays. Is journalism in your background, or do you do that too? Or?
Actually, I never set out or even thought about journalism when I was a kid. The poems got me going, and then some short stories from that point on, and then later in New York, the plays, and then when I moved to L.A., the screenplays, and then finally novels came out. Oh, I did write some children's books when I was in New York, a series of children's books called The Pandemonia Pandas, and this is going to date me again, which Captain Kangaroo, Bob Keeshan, really liked. No one's going to know who we're talking about, but Bob Keeshan really liked, and he pushed those for me. And that got me going when I was in New York. I was actually working at CBS at the time, and I was in the studios where Captain Kangaroo was actually shot. So the grandfather clock, or old grandfather, whatever that was, that clock was there, and it was just like so cool to be there for my childhood. And so that was a lot of fun. But journalism really never got me. But I started writing more when I started teaching negotiations to Fortune 500 companies all over the country. I would go to them and teach them how to negotiate better, both the inside sales and outside sales, and even internally within the company.
Didn't you write a book about that?
Yeah, thanks, Lance. Perfectly done.
Wow, what a segue.
I wrote a book that's called Stop Saying Yes, Negotiate. And it's widely available all over Amazon and on our own website, 1330books.com. And that's kind of got me into the business book end of it, too.
Okay.
That's excellent.
I'm telling you, you really have got it all covered. So what's your favorite? Writing novels, writing plays, or writing music, songs? I've never did that.
I actually really enjoy writing plays a lot. I love novels because you can get into the characters, but I love the
interaction.
the interaction that I have with the characters while you're writing a play, because they're speaking to you and you're speaking with them and you're moving them around. So I really like that. As a matter of fact, Lance, whom we haven't really met yet, because I'm talking like crazy.
Nobody knows who Lance is.
Lance wrote a book with his writing partner called On Two Fronts, and we're actually taking that book, On Two Fronts, which is a military relationship book, and we're putting it into a play. We're making it a two-person play. And so we actually have a Broadway producer who's already involved with that, and we're actually going to turn that into a play. So it's kind of whatever is at the moment.
Yeah. Well, my next question leads right into that. I know you and Lance are friends, and what kind of influence has he had on your writing? And you just mentioned that you have a collaboration together.
Yeah. Well, Lance collaborated with.
You just do all of it. Okay. Go ahead. I'll just listen.
I'm sorry. Was that directed?
No,
at
you're
me?
doing great.
I was looking at the microphone and not at you, so I don't know where it was. I'll let Lance speak after this.
No, go ahead.
Okay, that's
Lance was collaborating with his partner, his writing partner, Sergeant Adam Fenner, on Two Fronts. But Lance and I had written a book together called Ripper, A Love Story, which is a book about Jack the Ripper, and I think some of you have read it. And it's like even Jack the Ripper had a lover, and that's a little creepy, but yes, even Jack the Ripper had a lover. One we assume he didn't murder, and so we wrote a book on that. I'll let Lance talk a little more about it now.
Well, we're going to ask him anyway.
Oh, you
he's
are
up,
going to.
He's up after you. Right?
Oh, okay, good. Then I can let
He
Lance.
gets his turn too.
Thanks, James. Appreciate it.
I thought he was just here just in case.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
So, what is your latest project?
Okay, my latest project is I'm working on two books: a zombie book and a murder mystery called Accomplice.
I'm
Those
into
are the
this
two.
zombie thing. What's the zombie book?
Oh, the zombie book is a really cool zombie book that I love the idea of it.
You do say so yourself.
Yes, I do. That's why I'm writing it,
He's
because
his
I
best
love the
salesman,
idea.
sure.
The premise of the zombie book is that the world courts declare that zombies, once they happen, are endangered species. So people can no longer kill them. Like in all the other movies that are out there,
Walking
people
Dead.
slaughter the zombies. But once the world courts decide that zombies are an endangered species and they're a subhuman species, now if you kill them, it's murder. So the book is really a lot about social commentary and corporate commentary. So it's a different take on a zombie book.
Okay,
Totally.
I have to ask you this because
Sure.
I'm really into Walking Dead. So, the premise of Walking Dead is they're everywhere.
Yes.
You have to kill them or you're going to get,
Right.
So, in your story, if there's that many zombies wandering around through the world.
Well, there won't be as many zombies because they were contained in a South African country where it started, because this company developed a malaria antivirus, and that antivirus goes astray, and the people, instead of becoming cured of malaria or prevented from getting malaria, they actually become this kind of zombie creature.
Okay.
And so it's contained there. But that's part of where the social commentary comes from, because Africa has a lot of social commentary and corporate commentary that has to take place in that region of the world. So that's why I contained it there. So now we have the people, we kill, they're not people, they're zombies, although the world court says they're subhuman. So they kill off some of them, but they have to stop because we declare it.
And what's the name of this book?
Right now it's
You'll
called...
get your turn, Lance. Just wait.
It's called The Last Z right now.
All right, that sounds good.
Wow.
All right, and we're going to move on to the next
Yes,
guest.
please.
So, Rich, where can we learn more about your work?
RichardDevin.com or our publishers 1330.com, and of course Facebook and Google+.
All right. Our fourth and final guest
Do we have time?
is Lance Taubolt. Lance is a singer, writer, and actor. Lance Taubolt is the current recipient of the IBPA Ben Franklin Award for the best first nonfiction for his book On Two Fronts. That is a great book, by the way, with co-author Sergeant Adam Finner. He has been an entertainer for 25 years, performing at the Met Opera, on Broadway, and in television for 5 years on the soap opera General Hospital. As a writer, he has written for Envy magazine, both as a fiction writer and book reviewer. His first novel, Ripper, A Love Story, was written with author, oh my God, listen, Richard Devin.
How convenient.
Wow. Who just happens to be sitting next to us. In early 2014, he released a book series called Zodiac Lovers, Book 1 and Book 2. Late summer and early fall, we will see the release of Zodiac Lovers Book 3 and Book 4. He is currently writing a paranormal romance series with New York Best Times.
How about New York Times?
There we go.
Yeah.
New York Times best-selling author Heather Graham, to be released in 2015. Lance, what did I leave out?
Okay, Zodiac Lovers 3 is out, and Book 4 will be out this week, actually.
Oh, great.
So in addition to that, there'll be a compilation that will be coming out early next year, and in the compilation will be included the 2 new Zodiac signs. Yes.
Unknown to all of us previously.
Ophiuchus and Metis. Ophiuchus is the serpent bearer, and Metis is the whale. And so give me an opportunity to write 2 more stories. And also it'll only be exclusively available if you buy the compilation.
Wow.
Yeah, it's called marketing.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that what that's called?
Yeah, that's what that is.
Bundling.
Bundling, that's it. Yeah, so my series with Heather's called Lucifer's Angels. At the moment, it'll be a series of five books, but we're working on that. And Rich and I have also been asked to write for a new book that'll be an ebook. It's an anthology called Fear, and all the stories are fear-based. So I finished mine. I think Rich is still working on his.
And that book includes New York Times USA bestsellers like F. Paul Wilson.
And Heather Graham. Aaron McCarthy,
Yes.
Kathy Love. There's quite a few authors that'll be in it. So it should be an exciting book. Be a lot of fun, a lot of staying up late with the lights on, we hope. So, yeah.
Well, I would like to say that this isn't a coincidence that the 4 of you are on the show, Kymber, Laura, Rich, and you, Lance. So how is it that you all know each other?
Well, we all met at a book fair that was here in Vegas, and we were sitting next to each other at the table, and as people do, they start talking. And Laura and Kymber and Rich and I, we just hit it off right away. So we're in constant contact now with one another, and we talk. We've got lots of plans for things to do. Maybe some writing, ladies?
Yeah,
I'd love to.
Yeah, we'll do our own little compilation, won't we?
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, we're getting quite
Well,
the
that'd be interesting.
That would be
cadre of
interesting,
friends.
yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I know that the 2 ladies are going to be here in December, and we're going to mention it again later on the show, but I would like to bring that up now. What are you going to be here for? What event?
We have a big signing at the Barnes & Noble that is here out in Summerlin, the Rainbow store there, and there'll be about 10 to 12 authors there, like you, James.
No, I won't be there. I'll be there, but only, just as an observer.
And Laura
As a
and
purchaser.
Rich, myself.
Okay, as a purchaser.
yes.
Very good, Rich. Boy, he is a salesman, isn't he?
Heather Graham will be here along with us, and several other authors, some surprise authors, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
All right. And where can we learn more about your work? And I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
On my Facebook page, my author page, Lance Taubolt author page, also at 1330 Books. You can get a hold of all of my books, upcoming releases, etc.
All right. Again, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Aspects of Writing with me, your host, James Kelly, here on KLAV, along with my co-host for today's show, Dana Micheli, and Janet Coursey. On your computer, you can listen to this broadcast live at KLAV1230am.com. Our guests for today's show are Laura Harner, Kymber Morgan, Lance Taubolt, and Rich Devin. The next part of our show, my panel and I would like to talk about the aspects of writing romance novels. First of all, how did each of you decide to write in that genre? And I'm going to start with you, Kymber.
Mine was actually a little bit odd, but well, long and short of it, I was in the hospital at one point, and with nothing better to do except devour a whole bunch of romance novels that my dear husband brought up by the armload for me. Mm-hmm. I was next to a woman who unfortunately didn't have a very good outlook on things, and she scoffed at them quite severely, enough that honestly I kind of pitied her. She made me really sad about the whole thing. She had no faith whatsoever. And since I happen to be fortunate enough to know firsthand that there really is such a thing as true love, because I'm lucky enough to have my own personal hero, and I married him, and we're still married, I decided to try my hand at expressing that, and hopefully, at some point, someone out there will read something I wrote and decide not to settle for less than that, because there really is a real thing out there.
Wow. And Lance, what made you start?
I agree with you, Kymber, on that. I am the ultimate romantic. Yes, I do believe in love at first sight and true love and all of that sort of thing. But I'd read romances for quite a few years, scoffed at them and watched my mom and my sister read them. And my mother kept saying, you need to try one, you need to try one. I went, all right, fine. So I read one, I went, wow, this was really good. It wasn't just a good romance, it was a really good book. And that got me right into it. And I realized that there are so many really great writers out there in the romance genre. And the genre has been poo-pooed for so many years about just being fluff and all of that. But there really is some wonderful there are some wonderful writers out there. And so I started in cover modeling and got involved with the Romantic Times magazine people. And it kind of spurred me on to write my own romance. So that's how I got into it.
And Laura, you talked about yours was based on a dream, but you actually
that
the
was how
romance,
that first,
right? Yeah. So the romance part of it, how did that come into play?
Well, I think romance is really just relationships. And I started reading murder mysteries when I was a kid. Those were my favorite books. Nancy Drew, I outgrew her real quick and wanted John D. MacDonald or something. But it was all about relationships. And romance really just encompasses relationships. You can tell any kind of story you want within the framework of a romance. You have your hero or your two heroes or your hero and heroine, and you're telling a story about them as they work through whatever problem you throw their way. So the problem might be dead bodies and you're solving murder mysteries, or they might be zombies who are either good or bad zombies, or they might be vampires or Highlanders or whatever you want to make it, as long as you get to talk about the relationships and the people involved. I love that story that surrounds that. So that's why I write romance, because I want to give you or any other reader a couple of hours or a couple of days of getting lost in the world I build you and giving you a happy relationship at the end of it, if I can do that. So why else would I write in any other genre? Because if I want to kill somebody and then solve that mystery, I can do that within romance.
Right.
But I still get to have the relationship.
And Rich, what got you started in that path?
Well, I actually had never read a romance, and Lance got me involved with Romantic Times magazine's conventions, and I went down, met Catherine and a whole bunch of other people, and then before you knew it, Lance and I were co-producing and directing the International Mr. Romance Cover Model Competition, which is hardly romantic at all. But we got to meet a ton of romance authors, and many of them, like Heather Graham and Diana Gabaldon, became our best friends, our friends that are so close to us now. And I started to read their work because they're my friends. I felt an obligation, but I actually enjoyed a lot of what they were writing. So Lance and I then wrote Ripper, a love story based on that. I don't write romance so much anymore, but what I find is really important is that no matter what I write now, the romance is a critical aspect of that because of knowing all about romance writers and the romance books. And you realize that every single thing you write needs to have that,
and I
that
agree.
tie in it. Right.
Right. When I write, I do the same thing. I always encompass some kind of romance, romantic story within that confines of the book.
Yeah, it's almost like a separate book within the thriller. For example, if I'm in my third hour, I have a separate romance that takes place in there. It all, of course, is cohesive, but you could almost write one without the other. But the thriller would be lacking without the romance. The romance could not, or could survive, stand on its own without the thriller element.
Well, it gives the reader the connection.
Yeah.
You're connected to
Exactly.
it because you feel part of it.
And you know what I found, and I think, Laura, you touched on it a little bit, is that even in one story I wrote, one of the main characters, there was a romantic situation going on. One of the main characters gets killed off, but that romance is still carried throughout the book,
Right.
through flashbacks or memories, or So romance is a big part of fiction writing. Period.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
For the panel, what we'd like to talk about next is the romance story. What is the difference between a romance story and, let's say, for instance, erotica? I want people to understand there's a huge difference here.
There is.
Who would like to take this?
There is. All right, I'll step in first.
Of
here.
course, because you had the sex quote. That's why.
Well, if the shoe fits. Erotica, romance is, or erotic romance is where the majority of the story is about the romance. Erotica, the majority of the story is going to be focused on the sex.
Exactly.
So there will be there'll definitely a romantic element between it, but it's more focused on the sex. That's the difference.
And erotica can break up into so many subgenres. There's dinosaur erotica. There's dragon erotica.
Wow. Rich knows it all.
You have no what is
We
out
just
there.
opened up a whole new show.
I only know that because I was doing research for the show. That's the only reason
yeah.
I know any of that.
For
Yes.
years, he's been doing research for this show.
I knew it'd come in handy sometime.
All right, and what influences the storyline? Where do you get the ideas from? Laura mentioned that hers is based. Her story started off as a dream. So, Lance, where do you get your ideas? I know how you've got the one story on two fronts. That one makes sense because it's based on truth. But when you're writing fiction, where do these ideas come from for you?
They can come from anywhere, really. Like in the Zodiac, each one of those has a different paranormal element to it. So, and then all of the traits of that sign of the Zodiac belong to one of the lovers in the story. So I had that to start with, and then I just think up, okay, I'm going to write about, how about a guy who can read tea leaves, and he actually can do it and predict somebody else's future. All right, so how's that going to the romantic? He's going to meet someone and fall in love, but then you've got to think of what a conflict would be, and in that one, he can read everybody's future but his own.
So you build on you create the storyline, then you build on it from there.
Yeah, and I just start thinking about things that could happen.
Rich, what about you? Do you look at anything, or does someone do something and that might set you into the writing mode?
Yes. Well, like for a Ripper a Love Story, I actually came up with the idea of it because I was kind of in a really melancholy mood that day. And I was like, why can't I be like Cinderella and find my Prince Charming? And that was the thought that was running through my head. And then the other side of me, the deviant side of me, took over and said, what if Cinderella married Prince Charming and Prince Charming was Jack the Ripper? What would you do?
Oh, wow. So that's a stretch.
That started the story. It's like, what would happen if you fell in love with your Prince Charming and they meant everything in the world to you, yet you suspected them of being Jack the Ripper? How would you then handle that? So then I got on my melancholy mood and I dashed home and started writing the first draft of it because the thoughts were there.
And Jen, when you wrote your book, where did this whole writing element come from?
I just wanted to get a message out for people to care about people, for people to love people. And everything we do in our life is romantic because it's relationships. It's how you feel and getting that message across to everyone else. So that's how I got it going.
Well put.
Yeah, you're nice.
Yeah.
And Kymber, where do your ideas come from?
Oh gosh, actually from an all myriad of things. As a kid, I really, really loved mythology, all the different pantheons and all of those things. And as I got a little bit older, my grandmother would tell me stories of the Fae and all of these kinds of things. But in each and every one of them, there was always some element of either love gone wrong or love gone right, or just that it was always part of it, and always a relationship built there, just as what Laura was saying earlier. And then you start building on that sort of thing. I've got another one coming up, Shafted, and it's kind of started out with a what if. What if one of the gods was here now in our modern day world? What would he be looking like? How would he react to things around him? What if he fell in love with a mortal? And what if falling in love with that mortal took his immortality away?
Ooh.
Yeah, would
Now
you give
what's he
that
gonna
up
do?
or not? Yeah.
Right. I like it.
Right? It's more. I think for me, a lot of it is the what if. What if this were to happen? Wouldn't that be interesting? To turn things kind of on their side, upside down. What can be different? But always coming back to that relationship. What's more important?
And
I think
What If is a really great place
yes,
to start.
absolutely.
Yeah, What If is great.
What If's great.
And Laura, I know you said your stories originally started off from dreams.
Oh no, that was just the very first one that got
Okay,
me writing.
yeah.
I tend to I write 12 to 15 books a year.
Wow.
So I'm always looking for an idea. And sometimes they hit me when I don't want them, or they're not something I particularly like. And I can give you a perfect example. When we all met at Barnes and Noble last year, Rich and Lance and I were there, and that day was the day that they had that tragic shooting in the Walmart in Las Vegas.
Yes.
And I walked out of there, and all I could think of, because I had to drive back to Phoenix, all I could think of all the way home was the children of that couple. What if they had the killers? What if they had a child, and how would that child grow up, and how would that grown-up child ever find love?
Ooh, yeah.
How do you recover from that? How do you
Get past
how
it.
do you tell a potential boyfriend or girlfriend even that something like that's happened in your life? And so that ate at me all the way home, and I had to come home and immediately open a file, and I wrote all that stuff down, and then I closed the file and put it away because I already had 7 other projects that had to be completed. But so I have this huge folder of to be written of things like that. When I hear a story, a news story, or I see people of a couple who are in their 70s walking through a Cracker Barrel restaurant holding hands, how did they get to there? Just anything like that can draw your attention and make you wonder what the story is behind that.
Yeah, that idea bank is really a good idea. And I think later on, I do something similar, and it spurs you to either think further on that one specific idea, or you can merge ideas together later because you have them all written out in an idea bank, and they may make a book of their own.
Well,
right.
all of you touched on something that I think is important for anyone who wants to write a book. Whether it's something that you have an idea and you want to expand on that and make it into something, a dream. I actually listen to my dreams now. In fact, I have a new book I just started based on a dream I had last week. So, and my first novel was based on a dream. And then my second novel was actually based on the fact that I was watching television. I saw a Discovery Channel thing about the primates, the rainforest, and then I noticed the similarities between the people of that region, their mannerisms, their facial expressions. And then I thought, well, what if, this is a what if we really did come from evolution? What if creationism was right as well? How would you merge the two? How could you show that they're both accurate? And that's where my second book came from. By merging both of those. And then, again, just from everyday observation, just watching things. I'm currently have a book I'm working on now. Jan hooked me up with an editor. And, well, actually, I kind of hooked Jan up with an editor.
My connect, I think, was better than yours.
Oh, okay, all right. Anyway, and hopefully I'll get that going here real soon. And that's just based on someone at work, where I work another hotel here in Las Vegas, and how she's pregnant. She ate this weird combination of food, and I thought, that would make an interesting book. So, it is amazing how we just pay attention to what's going on around us. You can create all kinds of things if you have an imagination.
Oh, yeah. Eavesdropping is great.
Eavesdropping's good. And traveling.
Oh, yes.
Traveling is a great thing. You go to someplace, and then, where am I going to set this? Oh, well, I was in Iceland. Yeah, we could put this in Iceland. And then it becomes a character in your story a lot of times when you pick an interesting region or place.
Well, we're going to shift gears a little bit because and I know 2 people sitting here in the studio are experts at this, and I have a feeling Laura and Kymber are as well. On the publishing aspect, when it comes to romance writing and getting your work out there, what can you do to bring attention to your work? And also, is it just for romance, or can you use this formula no matter what? Lance, I'm going to start with you.
I believe you can use it for anything besides romance. The romance industry, of course, is the largest of all of the industries. There are more romances published than anything else, so you've got a bigger market there. But you can use it. I think you can use it for everything. All of the social media, which is always constantly changing. You just have to. There's a lot of trial and error with it that we've found out. You've got your Facebook and your Pinterest and Twitter and all those things, and you see what works the best that you're going to get the most value out of. What's the best return on that? Rich is actually a marketing guy here and knows a lot about it and is working very hard with that. I mean, I know just from my own thing, but Rich, why don't you
add to
jump
this,
in there?
Rich.
Well, it's we have to take it two different ways. One, if you're going a traditional house, one of the big five in New York, or less as the days go by, they become less and less number-wise. But they're going to do the marketing for you. So the onus is more on them than it is on you. But for most of us, we're either self-published or with micro-publishers, and the author has to take on a really big part of the marketing. So you do need to be really savvy in your social media marketing. You need to know Google+, you need to know Facebook, you need to know AdWords, you need to be on Pinterest and Reddit and Shelfari and Book Life and everything there is to be. What you need to do is to stand out is, one, if you can get a really good author who's got a huge brand and a big name to do something for you.
Endorse your book.
Yeah,
or
endorse
whatever.
it. I mean, we all try to get blurbs, and luckily, because Lance and I know a lot of people already in some industries, we can get some good blurbs for our books. Diana Gabaldon gave us a blurb. Heather Graham's given them.
The romance authors are very generous.
They're
there.
very good at
generous.
that.
They love to support one another.
You can't be afraid to go out there and ask someone, hey, can you give me a blurb on this? Can you help me with this? Because we're on our own, really. There's no big marketing force behind us. The traditional ways of doing things with bookmarks and cards and flyers, those all work, but everyone's inundated now because there are so many writers out there. And matter of fact, a friend of mine is doing a paper at UNLV and asks the question, are we better now because of self-publishing, or are authors worse now because of self-publishing? I make the point that we're all better because as an author now, you can get published, and if you make $1, you're better than if you had to submit your book to a big house and never got published.
A penny,
right. So we're better. That was my argument in this paper that he's doing. But
I agree.
We need to somehow, you need to find a way to stand out within your niche.
But you know, something you brought up that was really interesting too. We had Ram Mish on with his books, and then we had Jerry Royce on, and they both were published through a publisher. And the interesting thing they were talking about is how they do have to go out there and market. You know, it's no longer believed that in the big publishing houses that if you're published through them, they're going to do all your marketing. If you're a name, they will.
Yeah,
but if you don't have a name and you're a new author and you're trying to get established, a lot of that falls back on you. You're still going to have
I've
to
heard
do
publishers say to authors, okay, we like your book. Now, what are you going to do for your book?
Right. As a matter of fact, when you submit outlines to some of these companies, that's part of what they ask for is what do what is your marketing strategy? What is your plan? You actually submit that to them when you submit your query sometimes.
Yes, totally different nowadays. It's totally different.
You know, I came at it a little differently. I didn't know anything about writing or publishing when I first started. I just wrote a book, and I entertained myself with it, okay? That's what it really came down to, was writing the story entertained me. When it came down to actually starting my indie publishing career and publishing my own works, what I did for marketing was write the next book. I didn't think that going out there and taking a blog tour or buying time for advertisement or paying for bookmarks or going to a conference made sense with only 1 or 2 books. Because when I'm a reader, which I am, I've been a reader longer than I've been a writer, when I read a book that I love, I go out and buy the next book from that author. So for me, my first marketing strategy was creating a backlist. And I wrote books for 2 straight years until I had probably, 20 books published before I ever even did my very first blog tour. Because I didn't think who wanted to hear from me. I never expected to be a New York Times bestseller, and I'm not. I just wanted to sell some books. And then suddenly I sold enough books that I was able to quit my day job, and this is now my day job. But without that backlist, any type of marketing would not have been as nearly as successful.
And I think you just hit on something that's very key, because even when you're with the major publishers, the one thing they ask you is what's your next book? In other words, they won't even take you if you don't have a second book in the works, at least.
Yeah, many of them want 3-book deals.
Yeah, so you hit the nail right on the head. I think it's so important to have more than one book. And like you said, you need to show that you have staying power, and you can't do that with just one novel.
Right.
All right. And so I believe everyone on this panel is self-published. Is that correct, Kymber, Laura?
Yes, I am.
And Rich, and I know
Well,
plans are.
we are, but we actually took it to the next level. Rich and myself and Adam Fenner, we actually formed our own publishing company, 1330 Books, LLP. So it is a micro press. And so we've taken it, and we've been in business almost 2 years now. We are in the black. Which is, yes.
Yes.
We're very, very pleased with that part of it. But and we've been doing so well that we've got a lot of other authors want to work with us.
I would imagine.
Yeah, coming up, we've got Heather Graham's Christmas Treasures and also Heather Graham's Haunted Treasures. The end of this month, Heather's Christmas Treasures will be out. It's 3 novelettes that she had, and she is published with us. So. Got a big New York Times best-selling author with us.
Wow, that's so cool.
It was.
Very good. Yeah, we wanted to go. Well, I've been traditionally published in some of my nonfictions, and so I knew what that part of it was like. And so once we decided that we were going to self-publish our own books, then we decided let's go about this real. Let's make a publishing company. Let's run it like a company. Let's not just do it as a vanity press for ourselves, but an actual real business with goals and aspirations and a mission statement and everything else. We have meetings all the time. We constantly are working on it. But what's happened is that we've started to get some notice from some of the bigger authors and some others, and they've now come to us and said, "Hey, you know what? We have my backlist. Would you guys want to take my backlist and do something with it?" And we do everything in-house. We keep our costs really low. We now are working with some outsourced editors and book design or cover designers. But we went that route because we wanted, one, give ourselves legitimacy, but also because we wanted to learn what the actual publishing parts of it were like. So that when I talk to editors or agents or other, I know I have that experience. Right. So we're coming to it as a well-rounded author. And just like having that backlist that Kymber or Laura was talking about, we come also with that knowledge in addition to a backlist, and I think that helps us along the way. Hopefully someday some big house will want to pick us up and make us an imprint, and we'll go from there.
Now, we've approached it from we're all about the writer. So we're not in it to make money as such. Anything that comes in goes back into the next publication. Yeah. So that's how we're doing it, because we're all about the writers, since we are the writers too.
Yeah, and I think that when you're publishing, excuse me, I help other authors as well, and I think that's the one thing I never look at it as how much money I'm going to make. I would like to have something for my, but the thing is that somewhere down the road maybe, but I always approach it from what can we do with this book, where can we go with it. So I think that, to me, that's the best way you can do it when it's someone who's unknown and you're trying to get them established. But I'm curious, because we brought this up, since you are setting off to do this, obviously with Heather Graham you don't have that problem, but when you look at these new authors, are you going to be looking at what else they would have other than the piece they present to you?
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. We want to see what else they have, what else they have in mind. And I have to say, we're some of the authors that have come to us and say, well, you need to get out there and develop your social media so that we can work with that and work with you. So that, like the big publishers, we want to know too, exactly what you're willing to put forth there.
Yeah, we did. We had a couple of authors that have already submitted to a line that we were developing, and we liked the idea of the story that they were submitting, but then when we Googled them and did research and everything on them, we couldn't find enough SEO on them. We couldn't find enough analytics on them. So we knew that they had not been doing their work. Mm-hmm. So it was going to make our work much harder. So we do look for that. We actually, we don't just read your work and say, yeah, that's a great story. We're gonna buy this book. We don't actually buy it, but we work with you. We co-publish it with you, not for any fee. Our authors don't pay anything. Mm-hmm. But we also want to know: have you been out there? Have you been selling your work? Because that's a vital part of what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm. Real quick. Kymber and Laura, I'm going to ask you to both just chime in here. You've got about 2 or 3 minutes here. When it comes to presenting the work to the public, what advice would you give them when, as far as trade shows, how to get involved with the trade shows or book signings?
Laura, you want to start? Or you want me to start?
I'll start. Just real quick. I'll just say, if you're going to go to a trade show or anywhere in public, just remember that you're on stage from the minute you walk in the door of that location to the minute you're back in your car and headed away. There is no such thing as it's after hours, so I can behave the way I want to. If you're out there, you're there to represent your brand, whether your brand is working for a publisher or for your own publishing house or your own books. You are a brand, and you need to behave in a way that you would like people to remember you when they go home and they want to pick up your next book.
You need to come to work for us, please.
Well, that's exactly.
Kymber, what can you add to that?
Professionalism is everything. You absolutely have to take this seriously. It is a business. Yes, it's fun. It's creative. It's all of those things, but it is a business, and you must treat it as such.
All right,
present yourself properly, and make sure that you're offering the best possible product you can. Don't shortcut anything. If your hours and hours and hours of sweat, love, and blood are not worth a professional editor, a professional cover, and your proper presentation of your own brand, why are you bothering? You need to be serious about it.
All right, real quick, Lance, why don't you tell us about the event the four of you will be involved in December again, and the date.
All right, it's December 13th, that's Saturday, from 12 to 3 at the Barnes & Noble on Rainbow. That's out in Summerlin. And there'll be about 10, 12 authors out there, variety of genres, a lot of romances, all sorts of things.
Well, we're running out of time here. We're down to the last few minutes of the show, and I would like to point out that Dana Micheli is the owner of the editor and editor-at-large of WritersInTheSky.com. I'd also like to thank our guests Laura Harner, Kymber Morgan, Lance Taubolt, and Rich Devin, along with my co-hosts Dana Micheli and Janet Coursey. This will be our last broadcast of Aspects of Writing until next year. We will be on sabbatical or hiatus until February 2015. For now, at least, this show will be broadcast on VegasAllNetRadio.com, supposedly every Friday at 9 o'clock p.m. Please visit the website to view our show date and time. Our past shows are also archived on that VegasAllNetRadio.com. We also try to log past shows on YouTube.com. We do have about 140 shows there. So please visit YouTube.com/Aspects of Writing, and that's all one word, to view those shows. And also, you can see those shows on aspectsofwriting.com. Just scroll down, and you'll see the box there. Just click on that, and you can watch past shows. So until next year, this is your host, James Kelly, reminding you, if you can dream it, you can write it. And thank you, everyone, for being on this last show for me.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
James.
So much fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.